5 consecutive World Series championships. No team had ever done it before 1953. No team has done it since. Not the 1998 Yankees. Not the 1970s Oakland Athletics. Not any team, in any sport, in 70 years of trying. 5 straight. From 1949 through 1953, the New York Yankees won every single October. They went 20-8 across 5 World Series against 4 different National League opponents. They beat the Brooklyn Dodgers 3 times, the New York Giants once, and the Philadelphia Phillies once. They turned October into a formality that the rest of baseball could not interrupt. And the man who built it all, the man who managed every game of every one of those 5 championships, was a 63-year-old former clown that nobody in baseball had wanted to hire. His name was Casey Stengel. When the Yankees gave him the job in 1948, the press called it the worst decision in franchise history. One columnist wrote that the Yankees had been mathematically eliminated from the 1949 pennant before the season even started. 5 years later, the clown had 5 rings. And nobody was laughing anymore. This is the story of the 1953 New York Yankees, the team that completed the greatest dynasty in the history of professional sports, the team that did something nobody has ever done again, 5 in a row. To understand how Casey Stengel ended up managing the greatest dynasty in baseball history, you have to understand how unlikely the whole thing was. Charles Dillon Stengel was born on July 30th, 1890, in Kansas City, Missouri. He played 14 seasons in the major leagues as an outfielder, batting .284 for his career. He hit an inside-the-park home run to win Game 1 of the 1923 World Series at Yankee Stadium. Playing for the New York Giants against the Yankees, he was a decent player. He was also, by universal consensus, a clown. He caught a sparrow once and hid it under his cap. When the Brooklyn fans booed him at Ebbets Field, he strutted to the plate, tipped his hat, and the bird flew out. The crowd went from jeering to cheering in 2 seconds. That was Casey Stengel, part ball player, part vaudeville act. When his playing career ended, Stengel became a manager. It did not go well. He managed the Brooklyn Dodgers from 1934 through 36 and never finished above 5th place. He managed the Boston Braves from 1938 through 43 and finished 7th 4 straight years. In 9 seasons as a major league manager, he never once finished in the top half of the standings. "I became a major league manager in several cities and was discharged," Stengel said years later. "We call it discharged because there is no question I had to leave." He retreated to the minor leagues and found success there, winning the American Association pennant with Milwaukee in 1944 and the Pacific Coast League Championship with Oakland in 1948. But in the minds of the baseball establishment, Casey Stengel was a career loser with a gift for comedy and nothing else. Then, in October of 1948, Yankees general manager George Weiss hired him to manage the most prestigious franchise in sports. The reaction was immediate and brutal. Columnists mocked the decision. Former players expressed disbelief. The businesslike Yankee corporate culture, built on decades of winning under Joe McCarthy and the legacy of Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, seemed like the worst possible fit for a manager whose greatest achievement was releasing a bird from his hat. Stengel responded by winning the World Series in his first year. The 1949 season was a trial by fire. Joe DiMaggio, the team's superstar, missed the first 69 games with a bone spur in his heel. The roster was decimated by injuries. More than 70 players spent time on the disabled list or played through pain. Nobody picked the Yankees to win the pennant. Stengel improvised. He shuffled his lineup constantly, matching hitters against favorable pitching matchups, resting veterans before they broke down, and trusting role players in situations where other managers would have ridden their stars into the ground. He learned the strategy from John McGraw, the legendary Giants manager who had platooned Stengel during his own playing days. But Stengel refined it into an art form. He did not just platoon outfielders, he platooned infielders, catchers, and even pitchers, using starters in relief and relievers as starters depending on the matchup. He used 95 different batting orders in the 1952 season alone. His players grumbled about never knowing where they would bat or whether they would play on any given day. Stengel did not care about their feelings, he cared about winning. And his system worked because he had an uncanny ability to read situations, to see matchups that other managers missed, and to trust his instincts when the numbers did not tell the whole story. Yogi Berra once put it perfectly. Some guys grumbled about that, but I guarantee they were not grumbling when they were cashing their World Series checks. Connie Mack, the legendary manager who had guided the Philadelphia Athletics for 50 years and had seen every manager in baseball history, paid Stengel the ultimate compliment. I never saw a man who juggled his lineup so much and who played so many hunches so successfully. The Yankees won the pennant on the final day of the 1949 season against the Boston Red Sox, then beat the Brooklyn Dodgers in the World Series 4-1. After the final out, Stengel said, "I want to thank all these players for giving me the greatest thrill of my life." The clown had won a championship. The press adjusted their opinion slightly. Maybe Stengel had gotten lucky. Maybe the talent had carried him. Maybe it was a fluke. He won again in 1950, sweeping the Philadelphia Phillies in 4 games. The Whiz Kids had won the National League pennant on the final day of the season, but they had nothing left for the Yankees. 2 straight championships. Still a fluke, said the doubters. He won again in 1951, beating the New York Giants in 6 games. That was the year DiMaggio played his final season, battling injuries and age, his skills diminishing in front of everyone's eyes. DiMaggio retired after the series with a legacy as one of the greatest players in baseball history. But Stengel had already found his replacement. A 19-year-old switch hitter from Commerce, Oklahoma, named Mickey Mantle, took DiMaggio's place in center field. The transition from one legend to the next was seamless. 3 straight championships. In 1952, the Yankees beat the Brooklyn Dodgers in 7 games in one of the most dramatic World Series ever played. Billy Martin, Stengel's favorite player, the kid he had managed in the minor leagues at Oakland, made a lunging, game-saving catch off a Jackie Robinson pop-up in the 7th inning of Game 7. The ball was drifting toward no man's land between the pitcher's mound and first base. The first baseman lost it. The pitcher froze. Martin sprinted in from second base and caught it at his shoe tops. If it had dropped, 2 Dodgers runs would have scored and the series would have been lost. Bob Kuzawa, a journeyman left-handed reliever who had barely pitched all season, then retired 8 straight Brooklyn hitters to close out the game. The Yankees had now tied the record of 4 consecutive championships set by the 1936 through 1939 Yankees under Joe McCarthy. One more, and Stengel would stand alone. 5 in a row, something no manager, no team, no franchise had ever accomplished. If we are going to win the pennant, Stengel told reporters in spring training of 1953, we have got to start thinking we are not as smart as we think we are. The 1953 Yankees were, for the first time in Stengel's tenure, the consensus preseason favorite. The sports writers had picked other teams to win the pennant in each of Stengel's first 4 years. In 1949, they picked the Red Sox. In 1950, they picked the Red Sox again. In 1951, they picked the Indians. In 1952, they picked the Indians again. Every year, they were wrong. By 1953, even the most stubborn doubters had stopped betting against Casey Stengel. The lineup was a blend of established stars and emerging talent. Mickey Mantle was 21 years old and still a few years from his devastating peak, but he was already one of the most dangerous hitters in the league. He batted .295 with 21 home runs, 92 runs batted in, and 105 runs scored. He was a switch hitter who could hit the ball out of any park from either side of the plate and who ran the bases with a speed that seemed impossible for a man his size. Stengel had discovered Mantle in spring training in 1949. personally scouting the teenager from Oklahoma, and had nurtured his development from raw prospect to franchise centerpiece. Yogi Berra was the anchor. He hit .296 with 27 home runs and 108 runs batted in. But Berra's greatest contribution was not his bat. It was his work behind the plate. He managed the pitching staff with a calm intelligence that belied his public image as a lovable quote machine. Casey Stengel was asked once why the Yankees' pitching was so dominant. His answer was simple. Our catcher, that is why. He looks cumbersome, but he is quick as a cat. Berra was a future Hall of Famer. He would win 3 MVP awards during his career. He was the most important player on the roster, and Stengel knew it. Hank Bauer played right field and hit .304. Bauer was a former Marine who had fought in the Pacific during World War II, surviving combat in Okinawa and earning a Purple Heart. He brought a toughness to the clubhouse that complemented Stengel's intensity. He once told a younger teammate who was slacking during practice, "Do not mess with my money." That meant the World Series check. Bauer expected to cash that check every October, and he did not tolerate anyone who threatened it. Gene Woodling played left field and hit .306. He and Irv Noren formed one of Stengel's signature platoons, with Stengel rotating them based on whether the opposing pitcher was left-handed or right-handed. Both men resented the arrangement. Both men cashed their World Series checks. Billy Martin played second base and batted just .257 during the regular season with 12 home runs. He was the only starter with an OPS below league average. On paper, he had no business being in the lineup for a championship team. Any other manager would have benched him in favor of someone with better numbers. But Martin was Stengel's guy. Stengel had managed Martin in the minor leagues at Oakland and had fallen in love with the kid's fire from the first day he saw him play. Martin played every game as if someone had insulted his mother. He argued with umpires until his face turned purple. He fought opponents in the dugout, on the field, and in hotel lobbies. He was brash, combative, and absolutely fearless. He was also one of the smartest baseball minds Stengel had ever encountered, a player who understood positioning, matchups, and situational hitting in ways that his statistics would never reflect. Stengel once explained his management philosophy with a line that could have been written about Martin: "Keep the 5 guys who hate you away from the 5 who are undecided." Martin was one of the 5 who loved Stengel unconditionally, and Stengel repaid that loyalty with unwavering trust. In the regular season, his numbers were ordinary. In October, Billy Martin became someone else entirely. Phil Rizzuto played shortstop. The Scooter was 35 years old and declining, but he was a future Hall of Famer who still provided steady defense and veteran leadership. Gil McDougald played third base and could fill in at almost any infield position. Joe Collins played first base and contributed timely power. And Johnny Mize, the big cat, was 40 years old, playing his final season, providing pinch hit power off the bench as one of the most respected hitters of his generation. The pitching staff was extraordinary. 9 Yankees pitchers threw at least 50 innings during the regular season, and not a single one posted an earned run average above 4. That kind of depth was almost unheard of. Most teams relied on 3 or 4 starters and hoped for the best. The Yankees had 9 arms that could pitch meaningful innings, and all of them were effective. Whitey Ford had returned from 2 years of military service in Korea and immediately became the ace, as if he had never left. He went 18-6 with a 3.00 earned run average in 207 innings. Ford was 24 years old, a left-hander from the streets of Astoria, Queens, who threw with the guile and composure of a 30-year veteran. He did not overpower hitters. He outthought them. He painted corners, changed speeds, and made right-handed hitters look foolish with a curveball that broke across the outside corner like it was falling off a table. He was a future Hall of Famer who would become the winningest pitcher in Yankees postseason history. Eddie Lopat was the craftiest pitcher on the staff. They called him Steady Eddie because he never threw hard, but never threw the same pitch twice. He led the American League with a 2.43 earned run average, the lowest in the league, by changing speeds and hitting spots with the precision of a surgeon. His fastball was so slow that hitters swung early, swung late, and swung everywhere except where the ball actually was. He drove opposing lineups crazy with his junk. They knew what was coming and still could not hit it. Vic Raschi was the power arm. They called him the Springfield Rifle after his hometown in Massachusetts. Raschi had posted 3 consecutive 20-win seasons during the dynasty run, and his record during the 5-year championship streak was 92 wins and 40 losses. He was the pitcher Stengel wanted on the mound when everything was on the line. Raschi did not nibble. He came after hitters with fastballs and dared them to swing. Ali Reynolds was the most versatile arm on the staff. They called him the Chief, a reference to his Creek Nation heritage. Reynolds could start or relieve with equal effectiveness, and Stengel used him in both roles depending on the situation. He went 13-7 in 1953, despite suffering a back injury in a team bus accident in early July that plagued him for the rest of the season. His 5-year record during the dynasty was 83 wins and 41 losses. He pitched through pain that would have sidelined most men, and he never once asked for a day off. Johnny Sain provided veteran relief. Jim McDonald filled in as a spot starter when Reynolds was unavailable. Bob Kuzawa, the hero of the 1951 and 1952 October, was available in the bullpen for another run. The 1953 season unfolded with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. The Yankees knew they were the best team in baseball. They had won 4 straight World Series. They had a roster loaded with experience and talent. They had a manager who had never lost in October. The tone was set immediately. The Yankees went 11-3 in April, a 78.6% winning percentage that announced their intentions to the rest of the American League. They seized first place and held it for virtually the entire season. There was never any doubt about who would win the pennant. The only question was by how much. At one point during the summer, they won 18 consecutive games, just one short of the American League record that had stood since 1906. 18 straight wins, nearly 3 full weeks without a loss. The streak included blowouts and close games, home victories and road victories, day games and night games. The Yankees won every way it was possible to win. George Weiss, the general manager, deserved enormous credit for maintaining the dynasty. Weiss built the Yankees farm system into the most productive in baseball, scouting and developing talent year after year so that when a veteran declined or retired, a ready-made replacement was waiting. Bobby Brown, one of the few players who was on the roster for all 5 championships, later said, "Our Yankee teams from the late 40s and early 50s probably do not get the historical credit they deserve." By September, the pennant race was over. The Cleveland Indians, led by pitchers Bob Lemon, Early Wynn, and Mike Garcia, 3 of the best arms in the American League, finished with 92 wins, a total that would have won the pennant in most seasons. But the Yankees won 99. They finished 8.5 games ahead, coasting through the final weeks with the pennant long secured and their focus already shifting to October. The World Series was a subway series, the 4th time in 7 years that the Yankees and Brooklyn Dodgers would meet in October. The rivalry between the 2 franchises was the most intense in baseball, fueled by geography, class, and decades of heartbreak. The Yankees were Manhattan, the Dodgers were Brooklyn, the Yankees were corporate, the Dodgers were working class. The Yankees won everything. The Dodgers lost everything. Trains ran between Yankee Stadium in the Bronx and Ebbets Field in Brooklyn, carrying fans back and forth between 2 ballparks separated by a few miles of track, and a canyon of pride. Families split along Yankees and Dodgers lines. Fathers argued with sons. Husbands argued with wives. Bartenders refused to serve fans wearing the wrong hat. The Dodgers were magnificent that year. They had finished the regular season with 105 wins, 6 more than the Yankees, the best record in all of baseball. Their roster was loaded with future Hall of Famers and some of the most recognizable names in the sport. Jackie Robinson, the man who had broken baseball's color barrier 6 years earlier, was still dangerous at 34. Roy Campanella, the 3-time MVP catcher, was the backbone of the team. Duke Snider was one of the most feared power hitters in the National League. Pee Wee Reese was the captain, the steady hand that held everything together. Gil Hodges drove in over 100 runs with quiet consistency. Carl Furillo won the National League batting title at 344. And Jim Gilliam, the rookie second baseman, had scored 111 runs, walked 100 times, and won the Rookie of the Year award. Their pitching staff was equally formidable. Carl Erskine won 20 games, Russ Meyer won 15, Billy Lowe's won 14. Preacher Rowe, the crafty veteran, went 11-3, extending his 3-year record to 44-8. Clem Labine won 10 games out of the bullpen. Rookie Johnny Podres added 9 victories. The Dodgers had never won a World Series. Not once. They were 0-7 in their history, going back to 1916. Every year, Brooklyn fans said the same thing. Wait till next year. The phrase had become a punchline, a civic wound, and a prayer all at once. 1953 was supposed to be next year. With 105 wins and the most talented roster in franchise history, this was their moment. The 53 series was their best chance yet. They had the better regular season record. They had more talent on paper. They had beaten the Yankees for 6 months in the newspapers and on the radio. All they had to do was beat them for 4 games in October. They could not do it. Game 1 at Yankee Stadium set the tone. Billy Martin ripped a 3-run triple in the first inning. He finished the game 4 for 5. The Yankees won 9-5. It was a statement game, loud and violent and unmistakable. Game 2 stayed at Yankee Stadium. Rashi outpitched Billy Lowe's, and the Yankees won 4-2. They headed to Brooklyn with a 2-0 lead, but the Dodgers fought back at Ebbets Field. In Game 3, Carl Erskine struck out 14 Yankees, setting a new World Series record. Campanella drove in a key run. The Dodgers won 3-2. The home team had won every game so far. Game 4 was a Dodgers rout. Duke Snider collected 3 extra base hits, including a home run. Whitey Ford lasted just 1 inning. The Dodgers won 7-3. The series was tied at 2 games apiece. Brooklyn was alive. The ghosts of 7 previous World Series failures had been pushed aside. This was going to be their year. The fans at Ebbets Field believed it with every fiber of their being. Then Game 5 happened. Stengel had planned to start Ali Reynolds, but the Chiefs' back was too sore. He turned instead to Jim McDonald, a second-line starter who had gone 9-7 during the regular season. It was a gamble. The Dodgers countered with 21-year-old rookie Johnny Podres. The Yankees destroyed Podres in the 3rd inning. After 2 groundouts and a walk loaded the bases, Mickey Mantle stepped in against reliever Russ Meyer and hit a grand slam that cleared the left field fence and landed somewhere in Brooklyn's collective nightmares. The stadium fell silent. Martin later added a 2-run home run. The Yankees won 11-7 and took a 3-2 lead back to Yankee Stadium. Game 6, October 5, 1953. Yankee Stadium, 50,000 fans packed into the old cathedral in the Bronx. The game that would decide whether the Yankees completed the greatest dynasty in baseball history or whether the Brooklyn Dodgers, with their 105-win roster and their century of heartbreak, would force a winner-take-all Game 7. Stengel gave the ball to Whitey Ford, his ace, the man he trusted most. But Ford did not have it. He was chased after just 1 inning, giving up 3 runs on 3 hits and a walk. The crowd murmured. Stengel went to his bullpen and began piecing the game together with relievers, the way he had pieced together 5 straight championships, with instinct, with trust, and with the conviction that the right man at the right moment could change everything. Tom Gorman came in and steadied the ship. Then Reynolds entered despite his aching back. The back that had been injured in the bus accident 3 months earlier and had never fully healed. Reynolds gritted his teeth and pitched 2 innings. Johnny Sain provided 2 more. The Yankees built a 3-1 lead on a home run by Joe Collins and a 2-run double by Sain himself. But in the top of the 9th inning, with the championship 3 outs away, the Dodgers mounted one final charge. With 1 out, Duke Snider walked. Then Carl Furillo, the National League batting champion, launched a 2-run home run off Reynolds that crashed into the right field seats. The score was tied at 3. The Dodger dugout erupted. The Yankee Stadium crowd fell silent. For the first time in the series, it felt like Brooklyn might actually win. Then the bottom of the 9th. Hank Bauer drew a walk off Dodgers reliever Clem Labine. Mickey Mantle chopped an infield single, moving Bauer to second. 2 runners on, nobody out. Billy Martin stepping to the plate. Martin was hitting .500 for the series. 12 hits in 6 games, tying a World Series record. He had been the hero of the 1952 series with his game-saving catch. He had tormented the Dodgers for 2 straight Octobers, and now he was at the plate with the championship on the line. Labine delivered. Martin swung and lined a sharp single up the middle into center field. Bauer raced around third base. The throw came home. It was not in time. Bauer slid across the plate. Safe. Yankee Stadium erupted. Players poured out of the dugout. Stengel, 63 years old, jumped from the bench like a man half his age. Martin was mobbed at first base. Berra threw his mask into the air. The celebration spilled onto the field, into the clubhouse, and out into the Bronx night. The Yankees won 4-3. Walk-off single, 5th consecutive World Series championship, the record that would never be broken. Billy Martin had finished the series hitting .500 with 12 hits and 8 runs batted in. The 12 hits set a World Series record that would stand for decades. He had been the worst hitter in the starting lineup during the regular season, a .257 hitter with an OPS below league average, and the best hitter in the World Series, a .500 hitter with clutch moments that would define his entire career. That was the Casey Stengel Yankees in a nutshell, the right player at the right time in the right moment. Every single October, for 5 straight years. The Dodgers had batted .300 as a team in the series and still lost. They had more hits. They had more extra base hits. They had the better regular season record by 6 games, and they still could not beat the Yankees in October. They were 0-8 in World Series history. Brooklyn would finally win its championship 2 years later in 1955 when Johnny Podres pitched a complete game shutout in Game 7, and the entire borough wept with joy. But in October of 1953, next year had not arrived yet. 5 consecutive World Series championships. 20 wins and 8 losses across 5 full classics. 4 different National League opponents defeated. A manager who had been called a clown now had more World Series titles than any active manager in baseball. The dynasty would end in 1954. Not because the Yankees got worse, they actually got better. They won 103 games that season, more than they had won in any of their 5 championship years. 103 wins. In any other year in franchise history, that would have been enough. In 4 of the previous 5 seasons, 99 wins or fewer had been enough. But the Cleveland Indians went on a rampage. They won 111 games, shattering the American League record that had stood since the 1927 Yankees won 110. Al Lopez managed a team with 4 elite starting pitchers, Bob Lemon, Early Wynn, Mike Garcia, and Bob Feller, and they steamrolled through the league. The Yankees finished 8 games back, despite their brilliant 103-win season. It was a reminder that dynasties do not end because the champion declines. They end because someone else rises higher. The Yankees did not fall apart. They did not lose key players. They did not get complacent. Cleveland simply had one of the greatest regular seasons in baseball history, and even the five-time defending champions could not match it. The irony is that the Indians were then swept in 4 games by the New York Giants in the World Series. 111 regular season wins, and they could not win a single game in October. The Yankees, who had won 20 World Series games in 5 years, must have watched from home and wondered how that was possible. But that 103-win season that fell short only makes the 5-year run more impressive. The Yankees were so good for so long that the only thing that could stop them was a team that had to win 111 games to do it. Casey Stengel managed the Yankees through 1960, winning 10 pennants and 7 World Series in 12 seasons. No manager in baseball history has won more. He was fired after losing the 1960 World Series to the Pittsburgh Pirates on Bill Mazeroski's famous walk-off home run in Game 7. The Yankees said he was too old. Stengel, who was 70, responded with characteristic wit. "I will never make the mistake of turning 70 again." He came back 2 years later to manage the expansion New York Mets, one of the worst teams in baseball history. The 1962 Mets lost 120 games, the most in the modern era. They were comically bad, but Stengel managed them with the same humor, energy, and showmanship he had brought to the Yankees, turning a terrible team into a beloved civic institution that outdrew the Yankees in attendance by 1964. The man who had won 5 straight World Series was now losing 100 games a year, and somehow both versions of Casey Stengel were exactly the same person. He retired in 1965 after breaking his hip at a banquet. He was 75 years old and had been in professional baseball for over 50 years. He was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1966. His plaque in Cooperstown does not mention the sparrow or the discharged joke or the years of failure. It mentions 10 pennants and 7 World Series championships, including a record 5 consecutive from 1949 through 53. Stengel died on September 29, 1975, at age 85. His wife Edna passed away 3 years later. They are buried side by side at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. The 1953 New York Yankees were not the most talented team Casey Stengel ever managed. The 1951 team had DiMaggio. The 1956 team had Mantle at his peak. The 1961 team had Maris and Mantle hitting back-to-back. But the 53 team completed something that none of those other teams could claim. 5 in a row, the record that still stands, the achievement that no franchise in any sport has been able to match in 7 decades of trying. They did it with a catcher who looked cumbersome but was quick as a cat, a center fielder who was 3 years from becoming the most feared hitter alive, a second baseman who hit .257 in the regular season and .500 in October, a pitching staff where 9 men threw 50 innings and none of them had an ERA above 4, and a manager who had been fired from every job he ever had before he got the only one that mattered. They hired a clown. The clown won 5 straight World Series. Nobody has done it since. Like and subscribe for more baseball documentaries. Until next time.